In the span of 18 months, one farm in South Dakota lost $20,000 in cattle, watched a combine burn in the middle of harvest, survived a drought that hadn't been seen in 100 years, and then raced to save its hay supply from a second fire before the whole summer's work disappeared in smoke. That farm belongs to Tanner Sonne, and the reason you probably already know that story is because he filmed all of it. By the end of this video, you'll understand why the worst years in Sonne Farms history were also the years that built everything the channel is today, and why what's happening right now on that South Dakota land might be the most important chapter yet. South Dakota farming is not a gentle introduction to agriculture. The state sits in the middle of the American Great Plains, where winters run long and hard, summers cook the soil through, and the margin between a good year and a bad one can come down to 2 weeks of rain in the wrong month. Multi-generational farm families in that part of the country understand something that most people outside of agriculture don't. You don't inherit the land. You inherit the debt, the machinery, the decisions made before you were born, and the expectation that you'll carry all of it forward. Tanner Sonne grew up inside that reality. The farm had been operating before he ever picked up a camera. His father was already there, working cattle, cutting hay, managing the kind of operation that doesn't stop because it's inconvenient. When Tanner launched the Sonne Farms YouTube channel in December 2017, he wasn't starting a media company. He was just pointing a camera at work he was already doing. The early videos reflect that. Tanner wasn't performing. He was documenting grinding hay and feeding cattle through a South Dakota winter, hauling loads, working alongside his dad on jobs that needed doing whether anyone was watching or not. The production quality was simple. The content was real. A young man learning a trade that his family had been practicing for decades, with all the mistakes and learning moments that come with that. That honesty would eventually become the channel's entire identity. But Tanner didn't know that yet. What he knew in those first couple of years was that farming had rhythms: planting, growing, harvesting, selling, and that YouTube had its own rhythms too. He kept showing up. He kept filming. The channel grew slowly, the way most things on that scale of land grow. Then 2020 arrived, and everything changed at once. And if you think the early years were difficult, what came next is the part that almost ended everything. June 2020 didn't announce itself as a turning point. It just kept delivering problems. The first hit came through the cattle operation. $20,000 in losses. Cattle that were gone before Tanner could do anything about it. That number gets abstract very quickly if you're not familiar with how thin farming margins run. $20,000 in cattle losses on a working family farm isn't a line item you absorb and move on from. It's a number that ripples. It affects what you can buy next season, what decisions you can make, what options you have when the next problem arrives. And Tanner put it on YouTube. The video is titled exactly what happened. I lost $20,000 in cattle. No softening, no spin, just the number and the documentation of what it meant. That same month, a destructive storm rolled through and hit the farm directly. The kind of storm that doesn't distinguish between what you've invested in and what you haven't yet paid off. Infrastructure, crops, pasture, all of it subject to what the weather decides to do on a given afternoon in the northern plains. What's significant about how Tanner responded to both of these events isn't the filming. It's what the filming represented. Most farm content on YouTube, at that point, leaned heavily toward the wins, the big harvest numbers, the new equipment, the satisfying shots of combines working long rows under a clear sky. Tanner was documenting losses instead, and his audience wasn't turning away. They were leaning in. There's a reason for that. It connects to something real about how people who work in agriculture or grew up around it understand what farming actually is. The losses aren't the exception. They're part of the operating reality. Seeing a creator refuse to hide them is not discouraging. It's validating. But the losses in June 2020 were only the beginning of what this farm was about to face. Here's the part that changes everything about what you just heard. The summer of 2021 came in dry. Not the kind of dry that farmers work around with irrigation adjustments and shifted planting windows. The kind of dry that breaks records. South Dakota went through a drought in the summer of 2021 that weather historians classified as a 100-year event, meaning conditions that severe hadn't been recorded in the state in a century. The soil cracked, the pastures went thin. And Tanner Sonne was out there baling hay in the middle of it, because the cattle still needed to eat whether the rain came or not. That video, Baling in a 100-year record drought, captures something that doesn't translate well in summary. Watching someone work through conditions that extreme, with the equipment running hot and the fields looking wrong, communicates a kind of pressure that farming audiences recognized immediately. You can't fake that. You can't recreate it for views. It's just the job, filmed honestly. Then, In July of that same summer, the hay caught fire. Stored hay is one of the most volatile assets a mixed farming operation carries. The video Tanner posted, "Fire, frantically trying to save our hay," shows what that moment looks like in real time, not a distant column of smoke. The actual scramble to protect what was already cut and stored. Because if it goes, the cattle feed supply goes with it, and the financial fallout runs in multiple directions at once. The fire was contained, but the summer wasn't finished. October 2021 brought the combine fire. If the hay fire was a warning about how fast a season can turn, the combine fire was something different. A combine is not just a machine. On a working grain operation, it is one of the most expensive, most essential pieces of equipment in the entire inventory. When a combine catches fire during harvest, and the Sonne Farms video, Combine Fire, became one of the channel's most watched uploads, pulling in views that still hold up today, it represents a specific kind of catastrophe. The machine that brings in the revenue source is the machine that's burning. 3 events inside one calendar year: drought, hay fire, combine fire. Each one serious enough, on its own, to reshape the financial picture of a family operation. Together, they created the kind of sustained pressure that ends farms. Sonne Farms did not end. Most people who know this story stop here. But the real story starts right now. Here is something that gets lost in the crisis narrative around Sonne Farms. The scale of the operation was growing through all of it. While the drought was cracking the soil in 2021, the channel was also documenting a new sweater purchase. While the fires were happening, Tanner was filming calf overloads, bull days, and the logistical complexity of running a herd through seasonal transitions that don't pause for equipment disasters. The farm was not in retreat during those years. It was expanding, grinding, making decisions that required cash flow and long-term thinking in spite of everything that was going wrong simultaneously. By 2022, Tanner was loading 3 semi-trucks full of calves for a single sale day. By 2023, he was selling 300 calves in one transaction, documenting a brand new John Deere 561R baler purchase, and running harvest loads that required multiple semi-trips per day. The feedlot operation grew, the cattle program grew. By 2024, he was loading 180 steers in a single push, moving cow-calf pairs to green grass in late spring, and recording what he called a crop for the record books, a phrase that lands very differently when you know what the years leading up to it actually looked like. The subscriber count reflects the same arc. The channel that started in late 2017 with no real audience built to 324,000 subscribers and over 171 million lifetime views across more than 1,000 videos. That growth didn't happen because the channel showed a perfect farm. It happened because the channel showed a real one. And that distinction matters more than it might seem. There is a version of Sonne Farms that could have existed where Tanner only filmed the paydays, the sale day with 5 semi-loads of cattle, the new baler coming off the trailer, the record harvest. Those are real events on the channel, documented carefully, but they land differently because the audience watched Tanner go through the drought and the fires and the losses first. The wins mean something because the losses were documented too. And if you think that was surprising, stay with me, because this next part is why the whole story matters. Agriculture economics in the United States has become one of the most quietly discussed crises in rural America, and Sonne Farms has been documenting it in real time without ever framing it that way. The cost of inputs, fertilizer, seed, fuel, equipment parts, climbed sharply through 2022 and 2023. Interest rates on operating lines of credit moved at the same time. For a mixed operation running cattle and row crops simultaneously, those two pressures compound in ways that don't show up cleanly in any single video. They show up in the decisions that get made: which fields to plant, how many calves to carry through winter versus sell in the fall, whether to buy the piece of equipment the operation needs, or defer that purchase for another season. Tanner has been filming those decisions and the context behind them more directly in recent content than at any point in the channel's history. In April 2026, a video titled "I Am Desperate for Cash" appeared in the channel's feed. A month later, "Selling corn to afford to plant more corn." These aren't dramatic titles designed to manufacture tension. They're accurate descriptions of the financial position the farm was managing in real time. In July 2026, the hay crop failed. Another summer, another hit on the feed supply side of the ledger. Tanner documented it. "Our hay crop failed. Hopefully this works," and the channel kept rolling. What's notable about this pattern is that it continues to mirror the broader reality of American family farming in a way that the channel's audience recognizes at a gut level. The farm is not failing, But it is operating under conditions that require constant financial management, constant problem solving, and a willingness to make hard calls on a regular basis. That's not a crisis unique to Sonne Farms. That is farming for most of the people doing it at this scale, in this part of the country, right now. One phone call, one bad season, that's all it takes to change the direction of everything. The Sonne Farms story is not just Tanner's story. His father appears throughout the channel's history in a way that makes it clear this is a shared enterprise, not a solo project, with occasional family cameos. The video, "Dad has been waiting years for this," documents a moment of generational significance that anyone who has grown up on a working farm will recognize immediately. A purchase, an upgrade, a milestone that the older generation had been building toward for a long time, and that the younger generation finally makes possible. That dynamic, the passing of responsibility from one generation to the next, with all the unspoken weight that carries, runs underneath the entire Sonne Farms catalog in a way that doesn't always announce itself. When Tanner is out in a 100-year drought trying to make the hay operation work, part of what's at stake isn't just his financial position, it's the continuation of something his father built and his family maintained. That is not a small thing. The Young Farmer Learns the Hard Way video captures the other side of that dynamic, making mistakes with real consequences, not theoretical ones in a classroom, but actual decisions with actual financial outcomes, while the older generation watches and sometimes catches what the younger generation missed. That video title is honest about what the learning process actually involves. There's also a video in April 2026, "I Can't Compete with Dad's Milking Abilities," that carries a lightness the crisis content doesn't always have. It's a reminder that the family dimension of this channel isn't just about weight and responsibility. It's about a real working relationship between two people who have built something together and who still show up to that work every single day. Most farm channels at 324,000 subscribers have found ways to smooth out the rough edges of that reality. Sonne Farms has not. Whether that's a deliberate choice or just the natural product of Tanner's filmmaking instincts is hard to say from the outside. But the result is a channel that reads as genuinely inhabited by the people in it. Here's what the comments kept asking, and here's the answer they never got, until now. No, there is a counterintuitive truth at the center of the Sonne Farms story. The channel grew fastest during the worst periods. The Combine Fire video became one of the most watched uploads in the entire library. The $20,000 cattle loss video accumulated views at a rate the channel's earlier content didn't approach. The drought content, the hay fire content, the crisis seasons, those are not the videos that underperform on a channel built around real farming. They are the videos that make people stay. The reason isn't complicated, but it is worth saying clearly. Authenticity has a compound return on YouTube in a way that manufactured positivity doesn't. A viewer who watches Tanner lose $20,000 in cattle and then watches him still show up the next week, and the week after, and the week after that, through the drought and the fires and the cash flow pressure of 2026, is not watching for entertainment in the traditional sense. They're watching because something about that persistence connects to how they understand the world. For an audience of farmers, former farmers, rural Americans, and people who grew up in households where that kind of work was part of the daily fabric, Sonne Farms functions as a document. This is what farming looks like now. This is what it costs. This is what it takes to keep a family operation alive in an era when the economics of doing so are harder than they have been in decades. That's a different kind of YouTube channel than most of what exists in the farming space. And it explains why 324,000 people have subscribed to watch a South Dakota farm navigate the hardest seasons in its documented history. The question isn't whether Sonne Farms will face more adversity. It will. That's farming. The question is whether the next generation of this operation, Tanner, his father, whatever the family builds from here, comes out the other side of it with the land still under them. Based on everything the channel has documented across 9 years and over 1,000 videos, the answer looks like yes. The real reason Sonne Farms almost lost everything isn't one event. It's 9 years of documented proof that family farming in America operates without a safety net, and that the people doing it keep showing up anyway. Tanner Sonne is currently in the middle of summer operations in South Dakota, bailing through a difficult hay season, managing cash flow in a high-input environment, and posting new content 3 to 4 times per week. The farm that nearly broke under fires and drought and losses is still running, still growing its cattle program, still making decisions that will shape what the operation looks like 5 years from now. Whatever chapter comes next, Tanner will film it. The thing about farming is that the hard years don't disqualify you. They're the credential. So, do you think Tanner should keep documenting the financial pressure publicly? Or would you rather see Sonne Farms keep that side of the operation off camera? Let us know below.